I'm watching people set up music stands and chairs outside the KKL Lucerne, the Culture and Congress Centre in Lucerne, next to the lake of the same name. It's Switzerland, so of course there's a lake. I'm not sure what I'm about to hear, but it's part of Lucerne Festival, a classical music festival, and there's a crowd gathering.
My name is Claudia Christ. I'm from Germany and I play in the second violins in Lucerne Festival Orchestra.
Claudia is here to support her husband, but she actually performed in a concert the night before.
It was Bruckner's Symphony No. 7 and Yannick Nézet-Séguin was conducting. I'm getting goosebumps already, can you see? It's like just thinking about it. I couldn't really sleep and I'm still recovering from this.
How many times have you performed at the festival?
It must be my 12th year. This was said many times before from the musicians of the orchestra that we come here in our holidays, basically. We could decide to go somewhere else and just go on holidays and relax and unwind, but we want to be here.
And then what are we about to see here?
These are the musicians of the Lucerne Festival Orchestra, not all of them, but a few.
They're actually coming out right now.
Exactly, and just in front of the KKL, and they're performing now Vivaldi. They just had a concert inside, and now they came outside, putting the music on, and we're going to play.
And your husband is in there?
Yeah, he's the concertmaster.
It would be easy, maybe even lazy, to describe Lucerne as one of the finest classical music festivals, to dwell on its legacy, the renowned orchestras and soloists who've performed, and their famous conductors. But that would be doing it a disservice, because Lucerne is so much more than that. It's a classical music festival which wants to challenge you. It wants to challenge where classical music should be performed.
We have public viewings, we have pop-up concerts, we have a street festival.
It wants to challenge who classical music is for.
They're afraid to go to a classical concert because they think they don't understand it, but it has nothing to do with understanding. It's just about, does it touch you in any way? How does it make you feel?
And it even wants to challenge what classical music is.
It's really important to play, especially avant-garde music, to members of the public and like non-musicians. I think just because you've heard Mozart on the radio doesn't mean that's what you're going to hear in every concert you go to.
All whilst defending its reputation as a beloved and respected festival in a famously beautiful city.
Orchestras and world-class musicians from all over the world.
The concert hall, the whole building is already spectacular by Jean Nouvel.
You have mountains, you have the lake.
Beautiful river, all the old classic buildings.
Like in a story or in a book.
You're definitely in for a treat.
You're listening to a series exploring the 9 Swiss top events, hosted by me, Jack Boswell, and presented by Switzerland Tourism and Swiss Top Events. This is Views from the Top, Episode 3, Lucerne Festival. From Zurich, in the last episode, it was only a short 40-minute train ride to reach Lucerne. Situated in the centre of Switzerland, overlooked by Mount Pilatus, you only have to stroll through Luzerne's Altstadt, or Old Town, to see why it's considered one of Europe's most intoxicating and romantic cities. Beautifully preserved 15th century buildings with painted facades greet you wherever you look. But I was here to learn about music.
I'm Gregory Ass, I'm a violinist. That's it, I'm a human being. I guess that's clear.
Gregory was one of the musicians performing the piece of Vivaldi you heard at the start. I wanted to get his take on the first of the 3 ways Lucerne is challenging ideas about classical music, where it should be performed. How does it feel as a performer? What is the difference between being inside and then being outside on the street?
There are definite pluses. I like the more informal atmosphere. As a performer, I think you have to think probably you will lose some of the intimacy, of course, depending where you play. But I think you just appeal more to the people. You should talk to them more directly. While in the concert hall, I think you can you can go inside yourself and people will follow you. Outside it's much more difficult to create this circle around yourself, you know, you have to go out to the people more.
And why do you think it's important to do something on the street as well as inside?
A lot of this repertoire was actually written for outdoors. It describes outdoor happening. I'm sure it was performed also traditional outdoor concert spaces. I think it's important to also develop this more democratic, accessible part. Even the word classical, it may be a little bit deceiving. It immediately pushes somehow people away. It was not classical music when it was written. It was pop music.
This was the Taylor Swift of its time.
100%. Vivaldi was a rock star. He was living like Mick Jagger in a huge mansion in Venice. I don't know all the details. But for these times, for a musician, oof, it was big time, like Paul McCartney or something, like serious stuff.
Yeah. Your daughter was watching. What does she make of you when she sees you up there?
I think it's one of the first times I'm not sure she knows even I am playing. I was hoping to keep it this way. But I think now she understands more when I tell her Daddy is going to Lucerne. Now she understands. I asked her if she likes it. She said she does. I don't push it at all. I think it will come from her. She told me she's an artist, so I respect that. And she loves painting.
And what advice would you give to a young person who wants to perform here one day?
Don't make a goal out of performing here. I would give advice, just perform. If it happens, it will happen.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be, but you should do it out of love for music and for performing. And then for sure it will come.
We are now underneath the KKL Lucerne. This is one of the most beautiful contemporary buildings of Lucerne.
I was with Graziana Orsi, a local tour guide, to learn about the concert hall itself. As it turns out, even the design of the building where many of the performances take place challenges architectural norms.
First of all, the ground floor has 2 water channels. And those water channels were made after a brilliant idea by the architect Jean Nouvel. At first, he wanted to build a concert hall in the shape of a huge boat floating on the lake of Lucerne. And this project got unfortunately rejected due to ecological reasons. But then he decided to react to this rejection by saying, if I cannot build my building on the lake, I will bring the lake into my building. And this is how he came up with this brilliant idea of designing 2 water channels on the ground floor that run through the building inside and cut it in 3 parts. And they pump the water directly from the lake of Lucerne. So what you see inside the water channels is not random water, it's actually water coming from the lake.
But there is something you should bear in mind if you're planning on booking tickets.
Now, you also must know that those water channels can also be sometimes tricky because, as you can see, there are no balustrades on the sides, and it happens from time to time that people don't see the water, are not aware that there's water in there, and fall in the water. But the Lucerne people are so used to it that they laugh about it now. And every time it happens, it's usually reported on the local newspapers the day after, so everyone in town knows that someone fell in the water. It's so funny to us now.
We make our way inside the KKL. Wow, so it is literally cutting through the length of the building.
And the KKL Lucerne consists of 3 parts. And those 3 parts are cut actually by the water channels. So the water channels have an aesthetical function, but also a practical function in a way. And the Congress Center is totally covered by a huge metal grid. And Kurt Eschbacher, a Swiss TV presentator, once said about it that this is the most beautiful bird cage in Switzerland. So Guadalupe Falguera, the architect who designed the cafeteria on the ground floor, took inspiration by this quote and decided to name it Le Piaf, which is a word in French that means bird. And the idea behind that is once you're entering to the cafe, you're actually entering to a bird cage.
Lucerne Festival is enormously proud of its academy. a uniquely comprehensive school focusing on music from the 20th and 21st centuries, with 100 young musicians, composers and conductors from across the world participating each year. I caught up with a couple of them down by the water ahead of an informal performance to hear how their repertoire pushes the boundaries of classical music.
I'm Dominic Stokes, I play the viola and I'm from London.
I'm Andres Ayola and I play the oboe. I'm from New York. When you're in the circles of contemporary music and studying contemporary music, this is definitely a name that comes up. So I ended up applying and had the chance and privilege to be here.
Yeah, very similar for me. It's quite a big deal, especially in the contemporary classical music world.
Maybe if you start that answer again.
Yeah, very similar for me. I've heard about it for a while. I've got a lot of colleagues who have done it before. The Lucerne Festival is a really big deal. It's very well respected, especially the Contemporary Academy that we're on. The kind of contemporary orchestral thing isn't a massive thing in London.
Interesting using the word contemporary music, because a lot of people, they hear it's a classical music festival and they think, okay, there's contemporary music is not going to be a huge part of it. What kind of things are you playing that resonate with you?
What I love about contemporary music is that it's truly what's alive and what is innovating and finding new and interesting ways to present and to listen to music. So here we play music from the 20th century by composers that were actively trying to do new and innovative things, and also we get to collaborate with a lot of composers that come and we play their new works, or they come and conduct their new works. And we even workshop with some composers' works that are still in progress that are to come.
What have your highlights been so far?
Well, so far, we just performed our first concert a couple days ago. We played some really wonderful pieces, but one, especially for me as an oboist, the Pierre Boulez Rituel is certainly a highlight. It's a really intriguing piece with different groups of musicians all playing at the same time, but not together at the same time.
And then what are you about to perform? What are we going to hear now?
Yeah, so in this little outdoors informal concert, I'm playing a piece by the Japanese contemporary composer Dai Fujikura. He's really, really cool. He's written tons of stuff for solo instruments. He also wrote a viola concerto, but I'm playing his solo piece for viola called Engraving. He has a really interesting structure in the piece, so there's like 7 elements that you can order however you want, and so you sort of create your own version of the piece. I mean, it's very contemporary and avant-garde, but equally it really draws to like ancient Japanese sounds, like the shakuhachi is very present. Whilst it can be really scratchy and like crazy, I think that's also cool because like the world can be scratchy and crazy, I guess.
Speaking with Dominic and Andres, I was struck by the challenge Lucerne faces programming the festival. How to strike the right balance between the scratchy, crazy pieces and the ones like the Vivaldi we heard at the start. So I sat down with the man responsible for walking that tightrope, executive and artistic director Michael Häfliger.
The majority of the program is from past centuries. It's clear people love Beethoven, people love Brahms, people love Mahler, and there's also more repertoire that's less played, like Shostakovich or Prokofiev, for instance, who are, I think, fantastic composers, or Kurt Weill. But we include very new music that's actually composed for the festival and performed for the first time here. Just 2 days ago, we had a concert with our young composers, and I mean, it's fantastic to see how it is opening up, how different languages are being developed, new works are written. And I think it's so important to really include new music as a part of the festival.
The main reason I wanted to speak with Michael was to understand how and why Lucerne was questioning the status quo of its audience. Michael's due to step down from Lucerne next year, and now was the perfect opportunity to look back on his time shaping the festival. You've led the festival for 25 years. When you compare 1999 to 2024, what's changed?
Well, 25 years ago, it was still much more, I would say, conservative, more rigid in the whole ritual of concert performance. Today, it's much more open, it's freer, its dress codes are more relaxed. I have always made it a point, and it's a real passion for me that we try to include people that do not regularly go to classical music performances.
I was speaking to Gregory Ass, and he speculated that maybe we shouldn't even call classical music because it has certain associations for some people. Is that something that you're aware of?
That's what I've always said, but so far I haven't been able to manage because the rest of the world is still saying classical music, and it's sort of a habit. But you can also call it emotional music or romantic music or contemporary music. You can call it many things. It's music.
You said a few years ago in another interview that you wanted to have a feeling of shaking the ground.
Well, I don't believe in revolutions, but I believe in visions. I believe in strategy. I believe in changing things. But I think it's much better to change step by step. And even a small change is already a big step. I think it's awful not to have a strategy. I think it's awful not to include new audiences, especially also people who come from minority backgrounds. They have been let out of classical music for centuries. That's why we invite, for instance, the Chiniki Orchestra from London is basically people of color orchestra. We have Sheku Kane-Mason as artist in residence, not because of that. Of course, he's a great cellist, but also because we need to open up. I mean, whilst everybody's complaining, audiences are going down. We cannot just sit there, and we have to say, let's include new people. We had a big diversity festival 2 years ago, which was, it was controversial and it was discussed in the media as well as in the audience. And some people felt that's not really necessary. Let's stay the way it is. Others really went along. And I mean, even the New York Times wrote about it. And it was really felt throughout the world that we are doing something, that we're saying, listen, there's so much talent. Let's include everybody.
I'm glad you mentioned Sheku Kane-Mason because you have seen his career evolve because he played, I understand it, in his teens. And now he's back here doing, I think, 4 performances this year.
He has grown tremendously. He's become a really fully grown artist and a leader. I would say he feels his responsibility to also stand up for a certain generation of artists, but also for a certain minority, and to be working in an environment, classical music, that is mainly white. I think that's quite a challenge. And, nobody talks about it, but I think you need to talk about it and address the issues as they are, straightforward.
And there have been new pieces commissioned with him in mind, between guitar and cello this year, I think. Is that right?
Yes, he did a late night where he commissioned a new work for guitar and cello, which was great. Thanks to artists like him, we all in classical music are opening up to new horizons.
Do you think there's something about the character of the area that makes it more open to creativity?
Yes, I think so. But also I think that the community of Lucerne is very tolerant, very open-minded. They also go to hear contemporary music. And you don't get the immediate complaint, oh, I can't listen to that, I won't go again. But they'll go and then maybe say, I liked it or I didn't like it. They love to get into discussion. They like to talk. They like to communicate here, which is great. You have so many people here that have grown up in Lucerne that are so interested in the festival. They're so interested in music and curious. I particularly like the open air atmosphere. I love it when there is a stage on the Europaplatz in front of the Kekal and people are just standing there. I just personally like that very much.
I think there's something really nice about the fact that for some people, for some musicians, there can be a sort of snobbery about the acoustics of a space. And when you see really talented musicians out in the street, it takes away some of the expectation that maybe we have about classical music, that yes, it might be the finest musician playing on the finest instrument, but there's no reason they can't do it in a park.
When I grew up, the street musicians became more popular. That you would have a violinist or a flutist or clarinetist just playing on the street in the center of the cities. That was becoming very popular. I think even Nigel Kennedy did that. I never did it because, I don't know, maybe I was too shy or I didn't feel it was proper. But now over the years, I've really come to believe in this, to reaching out, to touching everybody, and to be somewhere standing, playing an instrument, reaching out to people that maybe don't know classical music. And it's a wonderful way of communicating.
Do you think what is proper has changed?
I think in many ways, yes. On the other hand, we still know where the core is. 60 to 70 minute program or even more with full concentration. It's almost like meditating when you're sitting in the hall. You're getting into a different world. Your mind is changing. It's sometimes even metaphysical. And you hear wonderful music being performed by wonderful musicians. I think that is still just touching the audience.
You've been listening to Views from the Top, a Switzerland Tourism and Swiss Top Events collaboration with the support of our partners Swiss International Airlines and Swiss Deluxe Hotels. A special thank you to the Mandarin Oriental Palace for hosting me during my time in Lucerne. It's been a true anti-classic production presented by me, Jack Boswell. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.